War does not end when the last missile is fired. In many cases, that is when the real damage begins. In the Middle East, a full-scale conflict between regional powers like Iran and Israel would not only reshape borders and politics, but it could leave behind something far more dangerous: long-term environmental destruction, often described as black rain. This term first became widely known after the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, where survivors reported dark, oily rain falling from the sky shortly after the explosions. This rain was filled with radioactive particles, ash, and debris, and it contaminated water, soil, and food supplies, leading to long-term health effects, including cancer, genetic damage, and environmental collapse. While the current Middle East conflict is not nuclear, modern warfare involves strikes on oil refineries, gas facilities, chemical plants, and dense urban infrastructure. When these targets burn, they release massive amounts of toxic smoke, heavy metals, and chemical particles into the atmosphere. These particles can mix with moisture in the air and return to the ground as polluted rainfall, a non-nuclear version of what we describe as black rain. History has already shown us similar patterns. During the Gulf War in 1991, retreating Iraqi forces set fire to more than 600 oil wells in Kuwait, creating one of the worst man-made environmental disasters in history. Thick black smoke covered the sky for months, temperatures dropped, and toxic soot spread across the region, affecting air quality and human health. Studies later showed increased respiratory illnesses and long-term ecological damage. In another example, during the Vietnam War, the widespread use of chemical agents like Agent Orange contaminated forests, soil, and water systems for decades, showing how war-related pollution can persist long after conflict ends. Now imagine a modern Middle East war, involving advanced weapons and large-scale infrastructure destruction. The scale of environmental damage could be even greater, and this is where the global impact begins. The Middle East is not isolated. It is directly connected to Europe through geography, atmospheric circulation, and trade routes. Winds from the region can carry fine particles across long distances, potentially reaching parts of southern and eastern Europe. This means that pollution generated in a war zone could travel beyond borders, affecting air quality, weather patterns, and even rainfall in distant regions. Europe, already vulnerable due to energy dependency, may also face indirect environmental and health consequences. But the impact does not stop at the environment. It extends deeply into the global economy. Destruction of oil and gas infrastructure would disrupt supply chains, leading to sharp increases in energy prices. Europe, which relies heavily on imported energy, would experience rising fuel costs, increased inflation, and pressure on industries. During past crises, energy shocks have triggered economic slowdowns, and a similar scenario could unfold again. At the same time, rebuilding war-torn regions would require massive global investment, shifting economic priorities and creating further financial strain. For ordinary people, the consequences would be felt in everyday life. Higher fuel prices would increase transportation costs, which would raise food prices and the cost of basic goods. Electricity bills would rise, and economic uncertainty could impact jobs and income. This is how a distant conflict becomes a personal issue. The concept of black rain is not just about radiation. It represents the hidden, long-term consequences of war that continue long after the fighting stops. It symbolizes how modern conflicts are no longer limited to battlefields, but extend into the environment, the economy, and human health across continents. And this leads to a critical question. If war in one region can influence air, water, and economic stability in another, are we entering a new era where no part of the world is truly isolated from conflict? Because in today's interconnected world, the battlefield may be local, but the consequences are global, long-lasting, and impossible to contain.